Chapter 14, Swapna Samriti Prakaranam, Dream and Memory. Swapna Samrityur Ghatade Rupa Bhasa Pradishyate Puranunam Tadakara Dhira Drishtetya Numiyate. As the resemblance of objects of knowledge, like jars, etc., is perceived in dream and memory, it is inferred that the intellect in those forms was surely seen before in the waking state.
So the idea that Shankar is going to drive at here, the overarching notion, I suspect, is to compare our waking state reality with the dream state. So he's riffing on the same idea that Gaudapada does in the second chapter of his Mandukya Karika. So in the first chapter, the exegesis on Om. Om is divided into four quarters: Uma and silence, waking state, dream state, deep sleep, and the consciousness in which these three rise and occur. Second chapter, he says, well, actually, it's not three mind states, it's two. Dream and deep sleep. Daytime dream, nighttime dream. And in the fourth Karika, in the second chapter, he says, the phenomenal world is quite unreal. The proof of its unreality is that you can see it. So what he wants to drill down on here is all objective phenomena, gross and subtle, is nothing but imagination. It comes about like a dream. What's real? What's the constant factor? Who sees everything in the waking state? I do. Who sees everything in the dream state? I do. If I take LSD or ayahuasca or mushrooms, who sees the fantastic images on those things? I do. All of those are swapna, dream-like appearances. The knower of them all is what is real. Now, the thing to understand is Vedanta is not solipsism. Solipsism is my individuality is real and everything I perceive is just a projection. Some of the modern New Age teachings go there. Why am I yelling at me through my boss? I create my external reality 100%. And Vedanta says, well, not really. You have not created the Andromeda galaxy as an ego. You drop dead, it keeps on going. So you are the god of your dream, no question about that. But Ishvara, the infinite, is dreaming all this. Now we participated. And certainly my interpretation of it, my own imagination. But the underlying principle, doesn't matter who's doing the imagining. Point is, it's just nama rupa, name and form created by So you wake up in the morning and you go, oh man, that was such a vivid dream. Did I really scream and yell at so-and-so, or did it happen in a dream? We've all had that experience. A dream that's so vivid, you can't tell whether or not it's real with a small r. But here what Shankar is saying is, how do you know any of your memories are in fact true? And in fact, if you have a sibling, for example, and you talk about a childhood incident, you say, I remember when you did blah, 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 blah to me. And your sibling says, I never did that. You ever had that experience? Or you say, Mommy, you were so mean to me. You did blah, 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 blah. Mom says, no, that never happened, dear. So who's telling the truth? Doesn't matter. Shankara here is saying that memory is like the dream state. What is the invitation here? Drop it. Let it go. Stay in the now, the eternal now. All right, next verse.
Bhikshamatanyatha sapne drishto deho nasa swayam jagrad drishyat takha deha drishtritadanya eva saha. Just as the body going from place to place for alms seen, example by a wandering mendicant in dream, is not oneself, so witnessing the body in the waking state, the seer must be different from it which is seen.
Yes. So the fact of my experience is in the dream. I have a dream body, and it is what I call a locus of perception. I peep out of the dream body at the dream world. Sometimes I'm in kind of an exalted observer, and I see stuff. But most of the time, I'm identified with the dream body, seeing the dream world. And here he's using the example, there you are, you're not comfortable in your ashram. You're out in the forest and you're having to go from place to place and beg. And when you wake up, even though it was a vivid experience, imagination. Shankara says, this is no different. The problem is, I can negate the dream state by waking up. Everybody has that experience. I wake up, the dream goes poof. So it proves to me it's unreality. It seems like, yeah, but the waking state is continuous. But think, when I'm in the dream seems as real to me as this does right now. So our challenge is, how do I wake up from being awake? How do I have an experience of negating the waker ego with its identification with the body and my belief in the substantive reality of the waking state world? Here Shankara is saying, actually, the fact that it feels real is not a proof of its reality. It's not the same experience in the dream. Any thoughts on this? Next verse.
Musha siktam yatha tamram tannibham jayate tatha rupa din vyapnuvachittam tannibham drishyate dhruvam. Pervading objects like forms, colors, etc., the mind appears to be exactly like them, just as molten copper assumes the form of a mold when poured into it.
Yes. So one has to think of someone who's making objects. So if you're going to make a copper bowl, or you're going to make copper rings, or you're going to make a copper hilt for your knife, you make a mold, you take the molten copper and you pour it in, and then it assumes those forms. So also it is the mind itself which becomes the forms in the dream. I dream I'm out sailing. It is my mind that takes on the form of the boat and the waves and the sails and the people. It assumes those forms, and actually it doesn't really assume them. It appears as imagination. And what I like to do is I give an exercise. So if you were to close your eyes and imagine an elephant, now let that go and imagine a pea. Did it take more of you to imagine an elephant than a pea? Shankara's image of the copper, of course, it would take much more copper to form a big statue than it would be a little pea. But mind is not like that. And in fact, you can close your eyes and imagine you're on top of a mountain looking at a vast plain with a river in it. And it doesn't take any more of me to imagine it. This relationless relationship. None of the images I imagine can exist without me. I am not in them, they are in me, and they're not even really in me. What's the difference between my fancy, my imagination, and a dream? The additional element of ignorance. In the dream, the precondition is a varana shakti. I go to sleep. The non-apprehension of myself as the waker. Then when the mind imagines a world of name and form and body and ego, it seems so real. I can listen to an audiobook, and I have a very vivid imagination. I'm reading Taipan by James Clavell now. So I'm imagining the harbor at Hong Kong and the little boats that are in there and stuff like that. Very vivid imagination. That's what I love about books. My imagination is far more vivid than a movie. But it's not real. It's just mental pictures. The difference is this precondition of non-apprehension of myself. So right now, I think that Jim, the person, or Oddity, the person, is real. If I tune up the mind, introvert the attentive faculty, notice the knowing. There's no person in there. There's just Chidakasha, the space of pure awareness. Where did the individuality go? Gone. Because it was imagined. It's not here. Any thoughts on this? Next verse.
Vyanchako va yatha loko vyangatsya karatamiya sakaramiya sarvarthavya jagatvadi arthakara pradrishyate. Or, just as light, the revealer, assumes the forms of the objects revealed by it, so the intellect looks like all things inasmuch as it reveals them.
So the idea here is that the light itself forms the object that it illumines. I don't understand the physics, but why is it when I look at a blue object, the light reflects back as blue? And if it's a red object, it reflects back as red. The sun strikes them, and some vibrational wavelengths are absorbed, others are reflected, something like that. Anyway, it is the light itself, actually, which becomes the various objects. I don't really see an object. I see the light that's reflected. And the idea here is, once again, it is the mind itself, this chitta, this mind stuff, chaitanya, stuff of mind, which becomes objects, emotions, thoughts, and egoism. Seen, but not real. Next one.
Hirevartha swarupahi punsa drishta purapicha na chetaswapne katham pashet smarto vakriti kutaha. It was the intellect in the forms of objects of knowledge that was seen before by the seer. How can he see them in dream or remember their forms if that were not the case?
Yes. So it is the intellect itself that forms these various objects. What is a dream? A dream, most dreams, are the undigested impressions of the waking state. So if I see a movie about an elephant and I look on my phone and I look at various horses, I may have a dream of a horse with a long trunk. The mind just puts them together. But it is the mind itself that forms these images. Shankara is saying the waking state is fundamentally no different. Next one.
Vyanjakatvam tadevasya rupadhyakara drishyata drishtritvam cha drishestatva vadyapti syadhiya udbhave. That intellect is seen in the forms of objects of knowledge is what is meant by saying that it reveals them. The self is said to witness the modifications of the intellect as it pervades them whenever they arise.
Yes. So the phenomena in the, and we don't need to worry about is it mind, is it intellect? That's simply a difference of function. Don't get caught up in that. Perception, feeling, thought, memory, image, all of it is just stuff that the self illumines. That's all it is. None of it is substantial. Now, remember, the Vedantic idea of the total mind. In going back to Mandukya, we talk about Vaishwanara, the knower of the phenomenal waking state, Vishwa. Then we have Taijasa, the dream world, the subtle world, Prajna, the total ignorance, the deep sleep. But the total mind is also called Hiranyagarbha, which literally means golden egg. But the idea is a total mind. It's the sum total of all the thoughts and feelings that can be thoughted and felt. Now, we've all had the experience where a group mind has its own identity. If you go to a sporting event, you jump up and down and scream and holler and do all sorts of things that you probably would never do individually or at work or stuff like that. You participate in the group mind. We hear on the news all these terrible stories of mobs getting panicked and people trampling others and killing them. You would never think of throwing someone on the ground and stomping them. So group minds are different than the sum total of the individual minds. They have a quality of their own. Expand that to the infinite, the total mind. But a group mind is made up of individuals. The total mind is made up of all the various infinite individual minds in the jugget. And it's not just human beings. It's the dogs and the frogs and the worms and the germs and aliens, if they're out there. All of it. So what? The point is, we absolutely project, manifest, create a limited part of the whole jugget. And if you talk with people, you will see that one person may say, oh, very dangerous. Don't go out after dark. Always walk together. I think I'm going to get a gun because it's a scary, dangerous world. Someone else may say, oh, I'm just so full of gratitude. I just really feel God working in my life. I'm blessed. I'm so blessed. Two people simultaneously living in two different worlds. You don't realize it. So we have a lot more freedom to choose the world in which we live. What is the determinator? Sankalpa. My largely unconscious, habituated thought patterns. So the image that Ramana Maharshi used to use, I'm going to have to find a new one because this is so old-timey, none of the young people know what it means anymore. He used to say the self is like the lamp in a movie projector. The mind is like the film. The images on the film are my various thoughts, memories, attachments, projections. And the life I see, the world I see out there, are the images on the screen. The fool thinks the images out there, people, places, things, and conditions, cause my mind states. Oh, all that good stuff is happening. I'm so happy. Oh, he's so awful. She's so mean. That's why I'm unhappy. And yoga says, you got it backwards. Whatever my deeply rooted mind state is, shows up as my experience of the world. This is one of the most important notions for us to internalize as yogis. If we stay in the mind state of victimhood, they are doing it to me. It's not likely ever to change. Any thoughts on this? Now, if I am fearful about financial insecurity, am I making the stock market go up and down? Of course not. But if a whole bunch of people get freaked out about financial insecurity and they sell all their stock, then the stock market goes down. But you can have peace and be free from fear, no matter what the stock market's doing. Likewise, you can have hundreds of thousands of dollars and still be filled with fear. Any thoughts on this? Next verse.
Sorry, we did 5?
I don't know.
Oh yeah, we're on 6. Okay. Oh no, we're on 7. Okay. Jinmatra jyotisha sarva sarvadeheshu buddhyaha maya yasmat prakashantaye sarvasyatma tato hyayam. I am the self of all, as the intellects of all beings are illumined by me, who am of the nature of the light of consciousness only.
So, the bodies appear different. My body is different from your body. My mind is different from your mind. My intellect is different from your intellect. But I am the self. And that self that I am is the illuminator of all intellects everywhere. One of Shankara's most famous images is the moon reflected in half a dozen jars of water at night. If I'm only looking into the jars, I see 6 moons. And that is Chandra Chaya. They are the reflections of the moon. It's the nature of water to be able to reflect those images. So also, in each person's intellect is Chit Chaya, a reflection of consciousness caught in the web of thought. Now, when I look at the 6 moons and the 6 jars, there aren't 6 moons. There's only 1 moon. And if I disturb the water in a jar, I go, oh, the moon is broken. No. But consciousness striking this one's intellect and your intellect, if that intellect gets disturbed, I'm unhappy. I am fearful. I am sad. I attribute to the self the qualities of the not self, just like I attribute to the moon the qualities of the surface of the water. No different. Just like no matter what happens to the water, it never touches the moon. So whatever shape, state, quality the intellect is in, never touches the self. Now, if the wind is blowing and there's a ripple on the water, the moon looks like it's rippling. But if the wind stops and everything is still, the water clearly reflects. So also, when the mind continues to be moved by the wind of attachment, aversion, identification, I do not see who I really am. When the mind is free from agitation, oh, Aham Brahmasmi. I have that heartless Brahman. Next verse.
Karanam karma karta cha kriya sapne phalam cha dhi jagratyevam yato drishta drishta tasmadato nyatha. It is the intellect that becomes the instrument, the object, the agent, actions, and their results in dream. It is known to be so in the waking state also. The seer is therefore different from the intellect and its objects.
So, in the dream state, it is the intellect itself that becomes the dream body, and the dream ego identified with it, and the dream world of name and form, and the subtle world of thoughts and feelings that reacts to it. But I am none of that. Likewise, this body and the ego sense identified with it, and the world of name and form perceived, is nothing but the modification of citta. None of it touches me. So if you've ever had a lucid dream, the dream is going on and you know you are dreaming, in that dream state, you see its fundamental unreality. Vedanta says, first in deep meditation, at least have moments when the mind stops. Then the world and the individual knower of the world are gone. But then when you return from meditation and see the world, know it for what it is. A lucid dream. So Tejo Mayananda used to say, the foolish person doesn't take life seriously. The intelligent person takes life seriously. But the wise person seriously doesn't take life seriously. Next verse.
Buddhaya Buddhayadina Manat Matvam Heyopadeya Rupa Pataha Hanopadana Kartatma Natyachyo Nacha Grihyate. As they are susceptible of appearance and disappearance.
As there is what?
As they are susceptible of appearance and disappearance, the intellect, etc., are not the self. The self is the cause of their appearance and disappearance, and cannot be made to appear or disappear.
Yes. So one of the classic images, it is because of the light of the sun striking the ocean that evaporation is caused and the fog arises or the storm arises. Yet none of it touches the sun. So also it is because of the life principle that the mind itself acts, perceives, reacts, all those various apparent functions. So what I call the Cliff Notes version of Vedanta. If it has a beginning and an end, if it is name or form, if it occurs in the gross world of objects or the subtle world of feelings and thoughts, if it's confined to the waking, dream, or deep sleep state, if it has a beginning and an end, and most importantly, if it can be known as objective phenomena, it isn't real. What is real? That which is the same yesterday, today, and forever. That which is nirmalam, without any taint or dirt. That which is nirupaham, without any form. That which is achalam, it never moves. That which is kutusta, still, stable, like a mountain. That which is achintya, beyond any thought. And most importantly, that which is never subject to negation. What is the eternal factor that's always there? Never had an experience of not being you. And again, it is never known as an object, yet it is not unknown. It's myself, which is Swayambhu, self-evident. That alone is real. That alone is the self. That alone is God. No. That is what is to be known. Knowing that, living from that identity is what brings a person peace. Next verse.
sabah sabahyaabhyantare shuddhe pragyane karase khane bahyamabhyantaram chanya katham hyeyam prakalpyate. How can an interior, an exterior, or any other thing be attributed to the self which comprises the interior and exterior, is pure, and of the nature of homogeneous consciousness?
So what he's pointing at here is it seems like myself is inside my body. My personal opinion, I think it's because the vast majority of our senses are located in our head. I see out, I hear, I smell, I taste. So I kind of feel like I'm basically a disembodied head. Frequently, in early stages of meditation, I get the sense of the self being behind. But it's not spatially located. I am not in the body, even though it feels like it. For example, it feels like I'm in the dream body. I'm in the dream body looking out at the world. But if I really examine it, no. The dream body, I am not in it, it is in me. So even though it feels like I'm in the body, it is a psychic optical illusion. And Krishna goes through this progression in Gita. Early on, he says, all this is strung on me like gems on a thread, Mani Sutre. And much later, he contradicts himself. Well, actually, I am not in them. They are in me. And then he says, well, actually, they're not really in me. What he means by this, if I dream I'm riding a horse, I don't wake up in the morning with a horse in bed with me. Where did the horse of my dream go? Gone. It wasn't really in me. And then he says, behold my divine support. So this nature of consciousness to imagine, it's part of its swabhava, it's part of its swadharma, it's what it does. The locus of Maya is Brahman. This is what happens. Freedom comes not from running away from a phenomenal world. Freedom comes from seeing it for what it is. It's a big virtual reality. Vivid, seen, but not Now, why is this important? I always use the example of going to the movies. So you can see a romance. Oh, that was such a beautiful movie. They were so in love. When you walk out in the lobby, as beautiful as it was, you don't go, oh, I've lost my love. Or you can go see a Marvel comic book action flick and there are crashes and stuff like that. You walk out, nobody really got hurt. Go see a Stephen King movie. Terrifying. Walk out, go, oh man, my heart was pounding the whole thing. Seen, and you can have the emotions, but your relationship with them is different. Are we still on?
Yeah.
Okay. We just no longer have fear about the world. Next verse.
Ya atma neti neti parapohena shoshitaha sachid brahma vidatmishto yato tata param katham. Why should a knower of Brahman make any more effort if the self which is left over by negating the non-self, according to the Shuddhi, not this, is considered to be his self?
So here what Shankara is saying is the self does not need to be achieved, attained, acquired. It's not a mind state. It is realized by the negation of everything that is not self. Going back over 30 years, when I had my meditation center in San Francisco, I had a student, and he had had an acid trip many years prior. And he was convinced he'd glimpsed the self on the acid trip. And he kept wanting to get back there. Bless him. Whatever he experienced, it could not have been the self. That would be like me saying, I used to think I had the form of a cow, and I took a drug and I saw that I was a human being. But I'm still a cow. No. Once you see who you are, if you really see who you are, you see that it's always there. Self is difficult to realize, not because it's far away. It is because of its profound ordinariness. I don't have to go someplace in my mind. I just have to withdraw my attention from all forms. What remains after I've negated everything? Negate everything that is negatable. What is non-negatable? when the scriptures say it is omnipresent, omniscient, it is far more literal than you imagine. What does omnipresent mean? It's always present. You are always you. Omniscient, all-knowing. Oh, yesterday it was I that knew the things of yesterday. The day before it was somebody else. No. Whatever is known, you know. And even when you don't know, do you understand quantum physics? No, Jim, I don't understand quantum physics. Do you know that you do not know? Yes, I know that I do not know. So even ignorance, I illuminate. You are non-negatable. Next verse.
Ashanayatitram tam brahmevasmi nirantaram karyavanasya katham chaham vimrishideva manchasa. One should rightly think thus: I am all-pervading Brahman, beyond hunger, etc. How can I have actions?
So I am ever the untouched, immovable, actionless witness of it all. Now, it's not just thinking it. Vivekachudamani Shankar will say, merely repeating I am Brahman is a wasteless use of speech. I am Brahman, I am Brahman, I am Brahman, I am Brahman. Will do nothing. What he means here is through the day, remember, tune up the mind just a bit. And notice the knower. Oh, I got so pissed off. Well, but did it touch me? Still Chidakasha, space of pure awareness, the knower of the anger. I'm not getting my needs met. Wait a minute, does the self have any needs? Still vast and empty like the sky. Over and over. All right, one more.
Paragastu yatha natya tastatha param yaya sati atmagyashchetatha karyam kartum manyadihechati. A knower of the self will wish to perform actions if one who has reached the other bank of a river wished to reach that bank while there.
So here he's talking about letting go of the mumukshu. What is a mumukshu? The person who wants to get liberated. So I'm up at the Russian River and I see a person in a boat on the shore with their paddle going in the mud. What are you doing? I'm crossing the river. No, you've already crossed the river. Don't bother me. I'm crossing the river. Makes no sense. So my mumukshutva, the burning desire for liberation, is the engine that helps me cross the ocean of samsara. But once I've begun to grasp in my subtle intellect, I am that partless one. Give up the mumukshu. Real story. I have some students who are pretty well rooted in their knowledge of the self. They go off and take these 10-day meditation retreats. They come back and I go, do you know any more self? No, Jim. You may have had some mind states. You may have cleared out more dross. May have had some insights about mind. Don't worry, it will pass. You'll be just engaged in your stupid life again. You either see who you are or you don't. There is no process of self-realization. There is a process in the purification of the mind. But once you see it, you either see it or you don't. If I get out of the shower and the mirror in the bathroom is fogged up, I cannot see my face. I clear off the fog. Maybe not all of it, but I see my face. Oh, I only have half a face. I'd only wiped half the mirror. Oh. You either see it or you don't. If you don't know, blame, do or tapas. Now, the mumukshu, the seeker after liberation, is seen to be doing spiritual practices so that they can purify the mind and realize their self-nature. The siddha, the accomplished one, may also be seen to be doing spiritual practices. It does not add to their knowledge of the self. It's just the highest form of worldly pleasure. Comes to my mind in Swami Tapovanam's book, Wandering Through the Himalayas. He talks about going to the Sharada temple, which is now currently in Pakistan. He walked all the way from Uttarkashi to Pakistan, barefoot. Once he got there, hanging out with the sadhus there, spent several weeks chanting praises to the Mother Goddess. It did not add to his knowledge of the self. Why do you do it? It's fun. It's his idea of a good time. Knowing what is meditation, anytime I engage in something that allows the mind to deeply revel in itself. All right. Any thoughts on this? All right, we'll quit here. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Sri Guru Pyo Namaha.